Welcome to Harley's Worms LLC, and in this video I'm going to take you with me as we tour our garden and our new addition, the honeybees, and there may even be a few worms in there too. Warning, the stunts and activities shown in this video are performed by trained professionals. Do not attempt to recreate or reenact anything you see, as serious injury or worse can occur. Always use proper protective equipment when working with bees, worms, dirt, or vegetables. Harley's videos are created for entertainment purposes only. The opinions shared are his own and not intended for educational advice. So now that we got the warning out of the way, I hope everybody, wears their best gear, and that way nobody gets hurt. And because gardening and farming can be a little dangerous, but outside of that, here we have our garden, and we have worked super hard over the past few months to get everything going our way. And as you can see, this tomato, his stalk at the bottom is huge, and the way we got there was using tons of worm castings in a whiskey barrel. And so as you can see, he's already about 8 feet tall, give or take a foot, and I do think he's going to keep going, and no signs of slowing up, so could have a potential world record organic tomato. And one of the more underrated crops, in my opinion, is going to be lettuce, and worm castings work amazing on lettuce, and it's one of those crops that you can plant and then you can keep coming back again and again and getting fresh lettuce. So definitely think about starting some lettuce in your garden, and as long as it's not super hot, your lettuce will be very tasty. But once it gets up above 90 degrees, it does start to get bitter and it'll start to bolt and go to seed. So there's a pretty good tip. Plant your lettuce before it gets hot. But outside of that, there are some heat tolerant greens you can look into, and we also grow Swiss chard, and it's one of the more beautiful and nutritious lettuces you can grow, and it tastes great and looks even better. And the only thing special we did to this lettuce bed was about 1 to 2 inches of worm castings, which our soil has already been built up over a few years. So if it is new ground, you might want to be more on the 4 inches of worm castings or compost added to the top. But in our case, it was just about 1 inch or 2 of castings, and we put a bag of microbial mix on there to boost the nutrition and to boost the microbes in the garden bed. And it paid us back every bit of what we put in it. We got back in lettuce, and we've been eating beautiful lettuce greens every day. And we've been trying for years to get our honeybee game going, and we finally did this spring, and we got a 5-frame nucleus hive, and so that's what you're about to see. And another word of caution, I'm a rookie beekeeper, and this is my first hive I've ever took care of, so definitely don't take too much advice from me on bees, but I got you on worms if you need advice. But anyway, so here we are smoking the bees, and what this does is it messes up the signal that the guard bees have to the other bees, and so they think that there's a potential wildfire or something like that, and they're going to try to eat a bunch of honey and get ready to fly away. So, and I do believe that is the queen bee right there, the larger bee, and I'm handling these bees with no gloves, no bee suit, but definitely don't try this at home, and that's what the warning label was for, as you could be allergic to bees, and there's a whole lot of stuff that could go wrong. But I'm not allergic, and I have handled them a few times. So but definitely do your own research on bees. And as you can see, this is a new frame that the bees are working on, and as you can see, there is no inner plastic insert on our frames. They say it helps the bees to make their comb and get the structure right, but as you can see, the bees are doing good, but it also bent as I picked it up away from straight up and down. So, but it held. So anyway, we prefer to do things natural and let the animals kind of do it the way they want to. And so here we are harvesting some garlic, and we planted this a long time ago, and garlic's one of those to where you plant it and then you harvest it all. And we ended up getting over 40 pounds of garlic off of one raised bed, which that does include the stem above the clove of garlic. So, but still, that's a lot of garlic. And here we have some cucumbers, and this is going to be probably our best year ever for cucumbers. And last year we grew enough cucumbers to make it 10 months on pickles that we made. So this year I'm hoping to make it the full year on pickle reserves, and they're so delicious, this variety we grew. And we actually grew it from seed last year, saved the seed, and grew it again. So there's definitely value in saving your seeds. But anyway, we got a pepper in a giant whiskey barrel as well. So hopefully we'll have some giant peppers in a few months. But this tomato is similar to how, and you probably heard this story before if you've been watching my channel, but our business started as we were just a hobby worm farmer and just had a few bins, just enough for our garden. And we ended up having a bunch of castings in December that we're like, we don't really know what to do. And so we put it in this whiskey barrel, probably the same one. And it was like September, and the tomato plant was half dead. And we put it in the whiskey barrel and nothing but castings, and had a huge tomato. And he wasn't this size because it was December and the daylight hours wouldn't really allow it. But we finally tried it and completely blew away my expectations for it. And if you're on the fence about worm castings being the best fertilizer that you can put on your plants, just look at that tomato, as well as some of the other squash and other vegetables in this video. But I've tried almost everything out there, and worm castings is by far and away the best thing that you can use for your garden. And so on top of the bees being an upgrade for our garden, as in the past we relied on other bees or other native species to pollinate our vegetables, which the bumblebee does do a lot of the work on the tomatoes and squash, but the honeybees are getting in there and pollinating the flowers that were grown in worm castings. And so I do believe because of that, the pollen and the nectar that the honeybees gather from my garden will make the honeybees do better than if it was just a cucumber without worm castings. And so the honey should be more nutritious, as well as the health of the hive. And so, like any good ecosystem, everything works together. And so that's what we're trying to do when we're gardening or worm farming. And we also got our first tomato, picked it a little too soon, but after a few months with no tomato, we were a little desperate, so we picked it early. But anyway, besides the bees being an upgrade to our farm, we also upgraded our trellises, and we went to a sturdier cage for our tomatoes, and I do believe it's going to be a difference maker for us. And what you just saw was our fig tree, and this is the peach tree. So we do have a little bit of a food forest going on as well. And the cabbages that are grown in worm castings are absolutely crushing it. And this one especially, he's our biggest cabbage so far, and he's definitely going to make a big cabbage for us soon. And as you can see, there's the bumblebee getting in on the action, making sure the tomatoes are going to be ready when we're ready for them. And as you can see on our cabbages, there's very little pest pressure on them and very little holes in the stems. And I do believe that's because our soil is so nutritious and dense in nutrients that there's really not much that a bug can do to it. But no cabbage is perfect, and especially when the temperatures get to heating up, it's almost inevitable that a bug will come in, especially on the any type of kale or kohlrabi or stuff like that. They really love to get a bite, just like us. But definitely this is the best year for cabbages. Last year we only got 2 or 3, but this year, I think with the added fertility of our soil and it being built up over a few years, that we could end up with 15 or so cabbages. And so I'm very excited about that. And then we also grew radishes underneath the cabbage, and I'm not sure if I'd do that again, as I do believe it's taken away some of the nutrition from the cabbage. And just a reminder, if you've never seen onion seeds, we hadn't either until we started using worm castings. And now almost every onion we have went to seed. And so that means that there was plenty of nutrition in the soil, and it felt confident enough that it could make seed instead of just doing an onion. And so that's a good thing. And as you can see, we're pulling cucumber after cucumber, and we've already pulled about 15 cucumbers full-sized out of the garden. And it's the 1st of June, so pretty exciting, as cucumbers are one of my favorite foods even before I started gardening. And here we have another slow burn in the garden, as it takes 8 years to reach full production out of blueberry plants, and we planted these 2 or 3 years ago. So got our first blueberries, and they were absolutely delicious. So definitely would be a good idea to plant some blueberry bushes. But anyway, here we are on our garlic, and this is the raised bed that we pulled 40 pounds of garlic out of. And not all of them were huge, but for the most part, they were pretty full-sized. And we actually forgot to add castings to this raised bed until it was a little too late. So they would have been a little bit bigger if we'd have been on top of it. But as you can see, we stay pretty busy at Harley's Worms, but we do the best we can. But yeah, we found the best way to, once you do harvest garlic, is going to be to knock the dirt off in the raised bed, and that way you don't make such a mess. And don't shake them like this up and down, because you might get dirt in your eyes. Also found that one out the hard way. Kind of shake them left to right, and you'll be doing a lot better. And I wish there was smell-o-vision, because if you could smell the way it smelled when this garlic came out, it was unbelievably a strong garlic smell. And all the mosquitoes and stuff, they got out of town when we started pulling up this garlic. And anyway, it smelled like pizza and spaghetti for weeks, and it still smells like it. But definitely a good time. I enjoyed growing it, and can't wait to eat some of it later. And if you look close in this video, there is a couple worms, as the red wigglers, inevitably some gets put into the garden through our castings. And as you can see, worms can live in your garden as long as the soil doesn't completely dry out. So as long as you can keep it watered, you can have worms living in their natural ecosystem. But I would definitely recommend putting them in a worm bin would be my first option. But as you can see, the garlic just keeps on coming, and it's honestly unbelievable as each garlic that is now cloved up started out as one clove. And so just a few pulls off the skin and it looks brand new. So definitely excited for the garlic powder, as we put garlic powder in pretty much everything we cook. So, and a bonus tip for you, as because we've grown so much garlic, haven't had near as much trouble out of vampires since we got our garlic game up. And by vampires, I'm really talking about mosquitoes. And yeah, fun fact, mosquitoes don't like garlic either. So, and here we are back in the cucumber patch. And again, it's just every time you walk through there, you got to get you a cucumber, because they say the more you pick the cucumbers, the more they'll grow. But I don't know, I like having the big ones that you can slice up. It's just less work for real, because you do kind of got to peel the cucumbers, at least we do. It makes it easier to digest. But as you can see, we've been eating cucumber salad, and maybe next week we're going to start working on our pickles. But this is the best pickle that I've ever tried, tasted, or tried to grow. It's the most productive, the best tasting, and yeah, it's a good seed. And as you can see, even the ones that we had on the ground are still throwing big cucumbers. So a trellis does help, but not 100% necessary. And here we are getting some crooknecks, and this is one of our favorites, as it is super tasty to fry it up and have it as a side. And nothing really compares to a good meal with a side of fried squash. And so we've been getting fried squash pretty much every day, and cucumbers every day. So it is definitely a good time to be gardening and worm farming. And as you can see, this one is nearly perfect. And here's a picture, or this is actually a time lapse of the tomato, the giant tomato we're working on. And can't see too much movement, but I'm gonna try to get a better one in the next video. And here's a good example of our honeybee getting in there on that cucumber flower, and he's gonna take that back to the hive and make honey and pollen out of it, because that is their food. And as you can see, the squash plants are doing super healthy this year, and probably going to be one of our best years ever on squash. And squash is a good one, not just for us, but also a good one to feed for your worms. Not that we've had any to feed for our worms, because we keep the squash for us, but if you didn't like squash, squash is a good one that's going to keep producing for most of the growing season and would be a pretty decent one. And what you just seen was about 100 tomato plants in one spot. So we're going to do an experiment to see if tomato spacing is really worth it. But I'll go ahead and let you in on the tip, is it definitely matters. And as you can see, the giant one in our whiskey barrel, in theory, he has infinite space, and so I do think that's what tomatoes like. And so here we are. Here's kind of the extras on our tomatoes that we did, and we just kind of stacked them in the row because we didn't really have nowhere to put them. But hopefully they print a bunch of tomatoes for us, and it'll be a good time. And here's some of the pictures from our garden, and these were taken over 20 days or so. And so you can see as the tomato develops, it's really taken off. And there we have some kale. And as you can see, the stalks, as it goes up, they just keep getting bigger, honestly, as it goes up. And I've never seen that before, and I've been gardening a long time. And we'll see what happens on our peppers, as they're in pretty much the same conditions as the tomatoes, but peppers do take longer to get established, and it is a rare pepper, so it does take a little bit longer as well. And a lot of the purple varieties out there, I think it takes longer to make that purple color, and so the plants take longer to grow. But once they get going, they're just as good as the other plants, but they do take longer to get to the fruit. And here's a picture of the garlic with the tomato, and I could barely hold it right there, so that's why we got a picture. And here's the honeybees going back and forth to their hive, toting in the pollen and the nectar. And as you can see, they stay busy pretty much all day long. And so very grateful for the honeybees.